Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Freight Be Moving All Things Logistics with me, Jewel Williams, your host. I hope everybody had a fantastic week. It is Friday. Happy Friday. And we are at the end of the month. We have made it through month number 1 here in 2023. Big things are happening. Big things are happening. Our economy is about to make a turn. And on today's episode, I am talking about Biden's pollution loophole, AirFrance, KLM orders new planes from Airbus, and the tanks going to Ukraine, all things related to logistics. But before I get started, I would like to share with you some successful steps from John Maxwell, leader. I am a John Maxwell leader, coach, trainer, and I believe in the John Maxwell philosophy. So you will be hearing a lot of me quoting a lot of his things. Now, this particular group of quotes comes from the website Sources of Light, and the author is J.D. Meyer, and he actually put this together. And it says here, John Maxwell's 7 steps to success philosophy. Number 1, make a commitment to grow daily. Number 2, value the process more than the events. Number 3, don't wait for inspiration. Number 4, be willing to sacrifice pleasure for opportunity. Number 5, dream big. Number 6, plan your priorities. And number 7, give up to grow up. Now, I added the grow part because John always talks about growing up, meaning growing up into the success that you want. It's not just one straight and narrow shoot to the top. We've got to grow. We've got to grow in all directions and be well-rounded. So those are the 7 steps to success by John Maxwell. So let's get into this pollution topic today. As we are talking about this, I'm going to share my screen. So this first report came out by Clean Technica on their blog back in December. And the headline was Truck Loopholes 101, when emissions regulations don't match the real world. They highlight in the article that the plan that Biden administration has to cut emissions for larger trucks, such as your 18-wheelers, has a particular loophole in it in the manufacturing process, and it also has to do with the weather temperature. Now, another company that I believe is connected to Bloomberg came out with an article in Automotive News. The headline reads, Biden's push to slash truck pollution has a large loophole. The administration's ruling underscores the challenge of balancing efforts to protect the environment while bolstering the economy. It highlights the fact that there is a temperature issue that may be the loophole that some manufacturers can utilize so that they don't have to comply with this new regulation. And if that is the case, many of these truck drivers may not have to go through so many changes with this new requirement. Now, 2 of the bigger manufacturers that definitely pushed for this are Daimler Truck North America and Navistar International Corporation. I bring this up as it is a part of the logistics process because as these new emissions compliance issues roll out, it is going to add to the shifting of how transportation and logistics conducts their day-to-day business. Owner-operators, smaller businesses are going to have to make some changes. They're probably going to have to do some upgrades to their trucks depending upon which service area they are in the United States. So as this regulation rolls out, it is the new models that are going to be coming out in 2027. It's only 4 years, and 4 years can fly by. So 18 wheelers and owner operators out there driving those 18 wheelers, they're going to see some significant changes coming through. I anticipate with this also the highway patrol doing more inspections to identify compliance with these types of new regulations coming about. And that is going to put pressure on owner operators to get in compliance, because they're going to start issuing tickets and so forth. And it's just going to be a snowball effect. So get ahead of this. If you're an owner operator listening to this, I would definitely recommend you stay up on this type of information, because it is really going to impact the way you operate your business. And it may also impact your wallet, as you may have to make some changes to your fleet. So that's the first part of the show. Now, there's some good news coming about. Headlines talk about Airbus has a new freight cargo jet plane, and AirFrance KLM has placed an order now on the website, on Airbus's website. This came out yesterday, the 27th, and it says here that the AirFrance KLM group has placed a firm order for 4 A350Fs, the brand new Airbus wide-body freighter, to be operated by Martin Air Holland NV, a Dutch cargo airline headquartered and based in Amsterdam. Now, this is good news, because this is where the purchasing of new equipment starts to push money into the economy. So for these companies making these changes to get ahead of the emissions and what is going to come out and the mandates for global climate control and reducing the amount of pollution that is in our air, this is where it's going to have a benefit to the economy, because as companies such as these purchase new equipment, that's going to feed into the transportation and logistics, because for every part that has to be built, there are subparts that must travel from manufacturer to shipper to plane assembly and so forth. So if you are in this industry where you service companies that supply parts and pieces to the aircraft manufacturers, this is a great opportunity for you to start looking and seeing how you can get some of that business. Now, one of the things that I want to just raise your attention to is when these news reports come out, most of the time, the company has already decided who their supplier is going to be. So you may not be that first line to get the business from those suppliers. However, by doing your research, doing your due diligence, identifying who are the suppliers for these projects, you then can start to position yourself in line, because this is just one company. This is just one company that's ordering these planes. As other companies decide to make the same expenses for these types of planes, those companies are going to be looking for transportation services. And as a transportation agent, such as myself, a freight broker, this is the time you want to start doing your research and identifying those other potential companies that could decide to buy these types of planes. So the purpose of this story is twofold. One, to tell you that the company is making a purchase, and that's a good thing, because there's money starting to flow into the economy. The second thing is, this is an opportunity for freight brokers, transportation agents to get out there and start prospecting for potential customers. You're probably wondering, like, why are you telling me this? Why aren't you going out there and keeping it a secret? I can't service everybody. That's why I share. I cannot service every single company there is to service. So I would rather share this information with those of you out there. So, hey, you can go out there and bid and get these contracts as well. So look into that. Look into this Airbus, the A350F. It is the new plane that Airbus is building. And companies such as KLM, these are big companies. Now, KLM, AirFrance KLM is a group. I went to their website here, and they basically are with AirFrance KLM, Transavia, Air France Industries KLM, and then there's the Air France KLM, Martin Air Cargo. All of these are part of that group, and each of those industries are buying from someone. So you may not be big enough to get in the door with these, but their supply chain is what you're looking at. You want to explore the supply chain that puts that plane together, from the nose to the tail, from the top to the undercarriage. That's what you're looking for. Nuts and bolts and tires and seating and the cushion that goes in the seat, and who makes all that? Who's the person that sews the material that goes in the seat? All the components that go into that plane has a manufacturer somewhere that's got to ship that stuff to the facility so that it can be made and that plane can be assembled and put together. So this is a tip for you guys that are always wondering, how do you go out here and you find your prospects? How do you go out here and build your businesses? This is one way that you can go about doing it. So KLM on their website, their slogan here is they connect your freight to the whole world. Now, this is an air freight and transportation company. Freight forwarders primarily work with these type of companies. However, freight brokers can work with freight forwarders and is not considered double brokering. All right, so freight brokers can work with freight forwarders and it is not considered double brokering. If you don't believe me, check the regulations on the Federal Motor Carrier Association. So these are some things that I just want to highlight for you guys because this is just great news. Another good story that came out this week. It may not be good for some people who don't like war, but for those of you who are looking for opportunities, Biden announces Abrams tanks to be delivered to Ukraine. War makes money. I've been waiting on it. I've just been waiting on it to happen. War brings money. Why? Because when we send tanks to help our allies, those tanks are made and produced somewhere. So this supply chain is going to start somewhere in our government. And this headline says, President Biden announced today that the United States will provide Ukraine with 31 M1 Abrams tanks. That is the required number to equip an entire Ukraine tank battalion. That's 31 tanks. So some of the questions you might want to ask yourself or write down are, number one, when are these tanks supposed to deliver? What are the components that go into this tank? Now, if you've ever seen a tank, I'm military, I've seen them. There are a lot of bits and pieces and nuts and bolts. For example, when I worked in the motor pool, I was the person that ordered the parts for Humvees and any of our trucks that went down. There were many components that I had to place orders for the nuts and the bolts and the hoods and the tires and all these little bits and pieces. And I had a database of suppliers to go through. Those suppliers are contractors. Those contractors are acquired by the companies who manufacture this tank, sending out RFQs for people to supply them with the nuts and bolts and all the components that make those tanks. So at this time, this is, again, you got to do your due diligence and researching what makes up that M1 tank, who is involved in the manufacturing of that M1 tank, because that group is going to need transportation services to move those components from point A to point B. And how long is it going to take them to manufacture 31 tanks? Are they all coming from one facility? These are the questions you want to start gearing yourself up for when you're looking into this stuff, because you want to do your research to position yourself to be a part of that team, that extended supply chain team that is putting these trucks together. So this is exciting news for those in the transportation and logistics industry, that you've got tanks and planes being built, because these are huge vehicles and vessels that need to be assembled, and the government is paying for that assemblage, which is the American dollars. So here are some tips for you guys, and you're looking for some ways to start building your business. This is how you can go about doing it. So that is going to be it for the show today. Get out there, be successful. Don't be afraid to approach those shippers. Don't be afraid to dig in and find out where the business is at. Pay attention to these stories, because when these guys start rolling down, that money's going to come downhill, and that is a good thing. That is a good thing. So be prepared for all that success coming in the next months down the road. And I'm going to sign off here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all my new subscribers on YouTube and Spotify and Apple. And share, like, subscribe. Peace, and have a fantastic weekend.